There's some clarity on Miami's potential first-round playoff opponent following tonight's first game of the Eastern Conference play-in tournament. Did Miami's path to a deep playoff run get even easier? Plus, what's at stake for the Heat when it comes to Jimmy Butler's tenure with the team? A report from The Athletic sheds some dubious light on the situation. We'll break it all down on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Heat Nation. It's a Wednesday edition of Locked On Heat, your daily podcast covering all things Miami Heat. However, you may be listening or watching on YouTube, Odyssey, or on your favorite podcast app. Thanks so much for making your first listen every day. I'm David Ramil, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Wes Goldberg. We'll talk about a piece that came out in The Athletic that kind of puts Jimmy Butler's tenure with Miami in some questionable light there. We'll get into the details a little bit because I think we both have a bone to pick with the reporting of this situation. And then there's also the Coach of the Year race that had some clarity as well. But we'll start off today's show with the first game of the Eastern Conference play-in tournament. Of course, the 7th seed Brooklyn Nets were hosting the 8th seed Cleveland Cavaliers. That game was it was a blowout for much of the game. Cleveland cut it close at the end. I think they cut the score down to about 6 in the fourth quarter at one point. Yeah, but eventually Brooklyn pulled away. Kyrie Irving was sensational for them. 12 of 15 from the floor. I think he had 27 points in the night. And the end result, a 115-108 victory for the Nets. So the Nets will be the 7th seed. They will take on the 2nd seed Boston Celtics, as we had predicted on the show or talked about on the show, which means that now the Cleveland Cavaliers will advance to take on, well, not advance, but they lost.
Yeah.
They'll get another opportunity to carve out a playoff spot for themselves when they take on the winner of the 9-10 bracket. That should be a matchup between the Charlotte Hornets and Atlanta Hawks. That game will play out on Wednesday, and then Cleveland will face the winner of that game on Friday. So we'll have a kind of preview once we have a little bit more clarity following Wednesday's second game of the Eastern Conference play-in. But first, any takeaways from Brooklyn's win over the Cavaliers?
Well, Kyrie had 34 points in that game. He
34,
scored
okay.
on his first 12 shots. I mean, for
good.
most of that game, it said 100% field goal percentage, and it was just crazy. He was unbelievable, making pull-up jumpers from mid-range, getting to the basket at will against a Cleveland team that was not putting up any sort of real defense at all and really couldn't score. I think they had like 47 points by like 9 minutes into the third quarter.
Only 20 points. Yeah, only 20 points in the first quarter, 23 in the second. So not great.
It was like they just had trouble on both ends, and Brooklyn looked like their best version, right? But it was also like, Kevin Durant, 25 points on 9 for 16 shooting and 11 assists. Like that was the best version of Durant. I don't know about the best version of Durant, but it was a very good version of Durant. And a very, very good version of Kyrie Irving. And they got really good nights from Bruce Brown, Nick Claxton, Andre Drummond. They combined for 47 points. And all of that said, Cleveland still kind of got it down to 6 points at the end there and gave themselves a chance late in that game. A Cleveland Cavaliers team playing on the road in Brooklyn that is reeling because of injuries and all sorts of things related to those injuries. There's no Jared Allen, though there were reports that he might come back from the broken finger. Jared Allen did not play in that game. And I thought that this was a game. Look, you and I and everybody on planet Earth agreed that this was a lock, that the Brooklyn Nets were not losing this game. Everybody and their mother was picking them to win this game.
Right.
I thought they would win this game by like 15 points, 20 points. I did not think it would be as close. I don't know how much there is to read into it, but on a night where you got near perfect shooting from KD and Kyrie, great nights from guys that you can't rely on to have great nights every single game against a team that had no defender. Like they put Isaac Okoro on Kyrie Irving. Like Isaac Okoro was fine, as a rookie, like defender, like good luck, I guess. But he's not good enough to defend Kyrie. They put Karis LeVert on Durant all night. Like that's not a matchup that's favoring
not a lot of options for Cleveland.
No, and yet it was still kind of close in the end. If you're Brooklyn, you can't complain about stuff. If you're a Nets fan, you're like, all right, cool. We got the 7th seed. Let's go. We got almost a week off. We're happy with this. I'm not saying you shouldn't be happy with this, but I don't know, man. Like I'm a little, and Kevin Durant played the entire second half. He needed to play the
Yeah.
entire second half against a shorthanded Cleveland Cavaliers team at home. I don't know, man. It
I'll
kind
say
of
it.
feels like they should have won that game by more and a little bit
I'll say
easier.
it. They look fallible. I think they,
Okay.
for all the talent, the top end talent, and again, you made it pretty clear that Irving and Durant are two of the greats in today's game. They're obviously very, very good,
Yeah.
and yet they still don't look like a very good team. And I've made this point for months. I remember saying this on Locked On NBA that there were concerns. This was when Harden was on the team. You feared their big three, but you don't necessarily fear Brooklyn, the team. They can be exposed. They can be beaten. Their defense is suspect. They gave up 108 points, basically 34 of those to Darius Garland. They were getting much contribution from anybody else in that Cleveland rotation. Kevin Love had an okay night. Just not a lot of production. I mean, they're beset by injuries as well. And you're
He
asking a
might have
rookie in Evan
he
Mobley.
might have lost the Sixth Man of the Year award with this performance.
Look, it's dicey
Get
at
that
this
in there.
point. He might, he might get some votes. Look, he's a strong contender. Look, he had a +10 off the bench, so that's
All right.
that's pretty good. 14 points,
Way
5
better
rebounds,
than Give me plus minus over just raw points, which is what Cleveland needed at the end there. But no, I thought I think that's a really good point. I think it's well said. You fear their big two now, right?
Yeah.
And you don't really fear the rest of the team. Now I'm kind of poking holes, but also like Seth Curry didn't have a great game. He was 0 for 4 from 3-point range. You don't
Oh,
expect that to be
can
the
I add
case.
something? Sorry, now that
Go
you're
ahead, yeah.
mentioning the big two, Ben Simmons, huge douche. Or to point out, to go out of your way to point out to TNT's Jared Greenberg that you're wearing an all lamb outfit. It's like, way to go, dude. You hate baby mammals. Like I'm
Right.
not talking of. I'm not even like as a vegan or anything like that. It's just like you go out of your way to specify. No. I've had several young mammals killed to wear this.
Right. This is not a cow, which we're used to killing. This is lamb. All right.
Yeah.
This is why people will point
Way to
out
go,
whether or
dude.
not it's alligator or snake, because people are scared of alligators and snakes. People are not scared of lambs. We don't want you to kill them to wear a
Right.
bright green matching. I don't even know what it is. If it's not
Short jacket
leather,
combo.
short, yeah.
Dude, no, not leather. Lamb.
Lamb.
100% lambskin.
So what is
Wes.
do we have another word for that? Because the way we feel better about not saying, "Hey, I'm wearing cow skin," is we call it leather. What is lambskin called? I'm glad you brought this up. I wasn't sure we were going to get a chance to talk about it on the show, but it was the takeaway from the game. I think you're right.
Yeah.
And pointing out to like, dude, you know what? If you're more proud of what you're putting on your butt, wearing lambskin for your outfit than actually playing basketball. Like you take more pride in your lambskin than your basketball career. Good job, man.
Yeah, way to go. And anyway, the flip side of this is that now Miami will obviously face one of Cleveland, Charlotte, or Atlanta. My pick is still that the Hornets will find a way to beat Atlanta and also knock off the Cavs. Well, no way of knowing for certain.
It's just called lambskin. If not lambskin, it's called sheepskin.
Right.
Sheepskin. Doesn't have a name like leather.
Sheepskin. That's what they called diplomas back in the day, right? Because they were actually printed out on sheepskin.
So we got rid of that.
Yeah. Good for humanity. In any case, as far as Cleveland, Charlotte, or Atlanta, is there an opponent of those that you are concerned with if you're a Miami Heat team?
No.
Because I don't think so. I
think
and especially what you do.
Do you even think Cleveland, like they should beat that either one of Charlotte or Atlanta, right? They're the higher seed. They're supposed to. They're going to have home court in that game, no matter what. I'm with you. They lost 7 of their last 10 games going into the play-in game, and then obviously lost the play-in game. They just seem to be reeling. They don't have many options. They're not getting anything from Karis LeVert, who I was on Locked On NBA saying, like, I never understood that trade at the deadline. I would have been going Eric Gordon or something like that if I were them. I'm just not a Karis LeVert guy. I never really have been.
Sure.
And, yeah, I mean, Mobley had a nice game. Markkanen, it wasn't a good game for him. It really hasn't been a really good. I know that everybody loves like the 3 towers thing that they had when Jared Allen was healthy, but like Larry Markkanen has not had a great season, and it's been a little, especially because of the second part of the season too. I mean, it's basically Darius Garland and company, right? At this point, because you just can't really expect that much from a rookie and Evan Mobley, as great as he has been. So I mean, I or maybe you can, but if Evan Mobley's your second best player, like that's not a playoff team. So.
A combined 9 of 29 shooting between Markkanen, Okoro, and LeVert in that starting lineup. So you take out Mobley and Garland.
Okoro's shot looks broken, man. Yeah, Okoro, that stat you just read is friendly to Okoro because he contributed 0 made shots. He did not make a shot.
Yeah, 0
His
of
shot
3,
does
5
not
of
look
14
good.
for Merkin, and 4 of 12 for Levert. So not a lot of contribution there from
So
the
you
rest of your
still think
starting lineup.
Charlotte ends up advancing over Cleveland? I think
Yeah.
Atlanta advances over Cleveland. Either way, to answer your original question, not worried about it if I'm Miami Heat.
No, I don't think so either. Like Charlotte still feels like they represent to me like the kind of high variance team that is
Mhm.
potentially dangerous and that like they could steal a game or something like that. But either way, we saw what happened when they were trying to compete for wins last week, and Miami disposed of them and scored the second highest point total in franchise history. So
Is
not
there one of those teams that you would prefer to play?
Prefer. No, it's not like we're traveling to any of those teams. I guess Atlanta's fine. Charlotte, just from just even covering them from that perspective. No, I mean Cleveland is fine. I guess I would prefer that.
Cleveland would be the easiest. I think that's a sweep, right? If I actually had to pick a team to play, if I'm the Miami Heat, if I wanted to pick my opponent, I think I would pick Cleveland.
Well, there's an X factor there too, though, because if Allen does come back,
That's a
if
good
somehow
point.
they find a way to knock
Yeah.
off Charlotte/Atlanta and they advance to take on Miami, and all of a sudden Jared Allen comes back and they get renewed energy and Allen's
Yeah.
healthy and in shape and everything else, and being able to play at a high level, like he's a really good player, an
Yeah, yeah.
all-star, etc. I mean, I think that makes
That's a
them
good point.
certainly more dangerous.
That's a team with
But
2 All-Stars now,
yeah,
almost 2 All-Stars with Jared Allen and Darius Garland. Yeah, I'd rather play Charlotte.
yeah,
Based on
and
what I saw
Allen
that last week.
Yeah, and Allen and Mobley protecting the paint limits some opportunities
That's a good
for
point.
Miami's, ball handlers
They're
and
long,
Tyler
they can
Hero.
close out on
Yeah,
those mid-range shots from Jimmy and Kyle too. Yeah,
yeah.
either
So
way.
that so let's root if you're a Heat fan. Let's root for Charlotte or Atlanta to find a way to knock off the Cavaliers because I think
Yeah.
that's certainly the easier path for Miami moving forward. But as you
Not
had talked about,
that worried about either of them, but yeah.
yeah. As you had talked about earlier in the week, though, it seems like Miami is steadily going on to the easiest path to a potential trip to the NBA Finals. Let's see how that plays out, and of course, we'll cover every game here for you. We'll have live recaps after every playoff game starting Sunday. Miami's schedule is set; they'll be facing the winner of either Cleveland, Atlanta, or Charlotte on Sunday afternoon, and we'll have a recap of that game. So make sure to stay tuned for that. But we've also got some concerns being voiced from rival players around the league. We'll talk about what's being reported in the Athletic in the next segment. But before we do that, just wanted to mention a new sponsor of the show. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that gives you the features of $200 sunglasses for a fraction of the price. That means polarized lenses, well-constructed durable frames, and premium high-end finishes. Also, something you won't find anywhere else is Shady Rays' Insane Protection Program. Shady Rays includes loss and broken protection on every pair. They'll send you a brand new pair if you lose them, no matter what happened. Give them a try, and if you don't love them, you'll pay nothing. It's as simple as that. They're backed by over 150,000 verified five-star reviews, and on top of that, 10 meals are donated to fight hunger in America when you shop with Shady Rays. Exclusively for our listeners, if you head to shadyrays.com, that's SHADY Rays, RAYS.com, and use the code LOCKEDON, you'll get 50% off two or more pairs, of polarized sunglasses. That's code LOCKEDON for the best deal this season. 50% off two or more pairs of Shady Rays sunglasses, but only at shadyrays.com. Thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast, nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysis from our local experts. Listen to Locked On Now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or watch it on the Locked On NBA YouTube channel. Lots going on around the league, especially from all the teams still involved for the playoffs. But for those teams that are not, you're still going to get great draft coverage. And of course, the offseason is still a big topic for a lot of teams. But that's not Miami's concern. Right now, they're not really focused on the offseason because they've got the playoffs in just a few days. Oh, but maybe they are. A report from The Athletic from reporter Joe Varden speculates that Miami might have some concerns about superstar Jimmy Butler and their tenure. Varden it was a very unusual piece. Wes, you read it. Many of our
Yeah.
listeners might have read it, or if not, they certainly saw snippets of the piece throughout the day on Twitter because there were some excerpts from that piece that kind of showed that Miami might have some concerns, some questionable phrasing there. Also, kind of went
Yeah.
all the way back to the Markieff Morris injury against the Denver Nuggets. That Miami, it felt like a team, or at least the way Varden wrote the piece, that Miami has been walking a tightrope all season. He kind of harkened back to a piece he had earlier in the season, an interview with Bam Adebayo, where Bam mentioned that the team was broken following the run to the finals, that last year was a very difficult one. Not breaking any news there. This is something that we've known for a while. That was a team that was exhausted. When the bubble run ended in October, mid-October, they had about a month before the start of training
Right.
camp, and then that shortened season. COVID, everybody missing time due to health and safety protocols. Last season was a mess by any definition of such. And so, yes, obviously they had a lot going on, but then he kind of took it back to the season, the Markieff Morris fight, and of course, the big fight between Jimmy Butler and Erik Spoelstra. And then this is where it gets really juicy. He had this one piece there, this one snippet, from the piece where he writes, quote, "When Spoelstra's clipboard hit the floor in Butler's wake, rival executives and even players and other teams noticed. They began to speculate that in the event of an early playoff exit, the Heat could look to move on from Butler, which is bonkers to even consider." Bonkers. Wow. Questionable phrasing there. Given the 3-year, $146 million contract extension they signed him to last summer, rival players speculated that Butler, worn down by the demands of Heat quote unquote culture, could seek a trade if it doesn't work out this spring. Wes, first initial reaction to Varden's
Yeah.
piece there.
Well, my first initial reaction, I read it this morning. Just, because I read things in the morning, and I read the whole piece and I just didn't think anything of it. I literally just did not think any. And you texted me and you're like, "What do you think about this Varden thing?" And I was like, "Not
Well, I
much."
didn't even know. I didn't
And
even know what was going on. I'm just seeing like
yeah,
half of Heat Twitter going, Jimmy Butler's leaving. The other half saying this Varden guy's an asshole,
yeah.
etc. Like
Well, I
it
mean,
was
look, Joe
pretty
Varden
interesting
is
there.
he's a veteran reporter, has been around for a very long time, and so I'm
Yep.
not questioning the sources. Like, I'm not saying any of this is like fake news or whatever. I just I don't really care what rival executives and players think. None of this stuff, and he makes that very clear. None of this is coming from the Miami Heat.
Right.
None of this is coming from Jimmy Butler's camp. None of this is coming from anybody who would know anything, because nobody knows nothing about what's going on with the Miami Heat ever. So much so that they're the only team in the league still announcing their trades via emailed press release. Okay?
Mm.
Nobody knows what's happening with the Heat. And I don't care if rival executives or rival players are speculating. Of course they would when Erik Spoelstra's clipboard hits the floor. Of course they would wonder what's going on there, because Jimmy Butler has a reputation. To me, this is not news. None of
Yeah.
this is news. I'm not I'm not saying it's fake news, okay? I think Joe Varden did hear this from rival executives and players and whatever. I just don't care what rival executives and players think, because they don't know anything, all right? And so to me, this was a whole lot of no news, not news, hardly not even worth writing about, honestly, and not really worth wasting a whole lot of oxygen over. I don't care about these kinds of reports. I just don't. It's a whole lot to do about nothing. It's very speculative, and I just
Yes.
don't care.
I get that. I agree with you. I just felt like it was important to bring up to our listeners, because I feel like, look, the state of Heat Twitter and Heat fandom in general, when you see your superstar player, especially given his reputation and things of that sort.
No, I'm not.
Uh,
Yeah, you're right. I'm not saying we should. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that we shouldn't be
no,
talking
no,
about it.
no.
We
I know.
ought to be talking about it now. Now that the report has been written, it's up to it's your and I's place on this show as
Yeah,
objective journalists to say, hey, this is how this sausage we think has been made,
right,
and just relax, Heat Nation. Like, if you're worried about losing
right.
Jimmy Butler, like nothing to see here. What I said, I'm not wasting oxygen over it. I just meant like this. We shouldn't have been forced to talk about it in the first place.
That's fine. I think like the Athletics coverage of the Heat has been
Well, they don't have a
uh,
reporter down here.
right. It's been a
So
little
they haven't had it.
inconsistent, to say the least.
Inconsistent is the best way to say it. Nicest way to say it. They don't have a reporter
Uh,
here.
yeah, I think it kind of is indicative of like national coverage in general. I think I've made this point before. It's hard to have very good nuanced understanding of any team unless you cover them exclusively. National reporters try, guys like Zach Lowe, etc. They try their best, and yet there's always going to be something missing. Even today, and this is something else that I thought was worth talking about. The Ringer had a podcast with, I believe the person's name was Logan Murdoch, a reporter from the Bay Area. and he was talking about the Heat chances in the playoffs, and he doesn't think that they're real contenders. And then he kind of harkened back to the bubble run and made it pretty clear. Like, first, he says that he doesn't remember anything about the finals run, and that despite the fact that it wasn't much of a series, this is what he said, that despite Jimmy Butler going supernova in that series, they weren't really contending against LeBron James and Anthony Davis at the peak of their power. It's just, to me, it kind of all ties together. The phrase you use, how the sausage gets made, etc. Like the way national media view this Heat, the kind of overblown context attached to Heat culture, right? It's easy to poke fun. If you saw, what's his name, Frank Isola from New York, kind of poking fun at Heat culture, and Pat Riley and everything else like that, for whatever reason,
Well, you
he's
know the
got a bone
reason.
to pick. Well, Justin Termine,
You mean
other
as a
guys always,
Knicks fan.
I guess, all these
No,
people.
it's all good point. Like, I get it. You're absolutely right, and what everything you're saying amounts to basically, hey, you don't have a reporter here day to day. You're not around the team day to day, and there are, look, I think you don't have to. There are national reporters, people who don't live in Miami, who could talk about the Heat in a very smart way, but there are
Yes,
also some that maybe fall back on narratives and
yes,
just and reputation. And to me, that's what
yeah,
this Jimmy Butler piece was. When you start talking about the bubble run and maybe it being a fluke, it's just old. It's just an old take, and it's not very
it's a terrible
interesting.
take.
And
Yeah,
I know Logan. Okay, I worked alongside him for 2 years. I like Logan. Okay, he said that the Heat lost the finals in 5 games. They lost the finals in 6 games. All right, like it's just whatever. I don't care. I don't care if you have a bad take.
yeah,
I've had bad takes. I've had a million bad takes. I don't care. But the Heat don't care either. And if they
yeah,
do care, they're using this as fuel, right? Because they heard all the stuff about the bubble run being a fluke. And by the way, they didn't do much to defend themselves last year by getting swept by the Bucks in the first round. Now, you're right. There's a lot of factors at play there. The shortest offseason in league history, all these things.
right.
But whatever the reason is, they did not defend themselves against against the idea that the bubble run was a fluke. They
Yeah,
have a chance to do that now.
yeah,
And
I
like
agree.
we talked about in the first segment, they got a really easy schedule, or not really easy, but compared to the other side of the
Easier
bracket,
path.
they
Yeah,
got the best path through the East right now. They've got a chance to do it. And that to me is what I think is partly motivating this team, is the fact that people do think that about them. If they think anything at all, because they've just not been talked about. Who's it? Kyle Kuzma that came out and said, "Wow, we're finally talking about the Heat," after Spoelstra threw his clipboard and threatened Jimmy
yeah.
Butler to fight him.
It's almost like
Like,
they've been number one for a great portion of the season too. Like, this is a rival player. Like, talk about your rival player's opinion about
yeah,
Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat. That's one right there. Joe Varden didn't include it in his piece. It's like, hey, guys, you probably should be talking about them in context of being the number one seed in the Eastern Conference, not the fact that they had a minor blow up that got
yeah.
smoothed over pretty quickly. To put a bow on all this, I will say that there might be tension, as there probably is with any
There was
group of.
tension.
There was tension. I think there probably is continued, not so bad that you'd force a breakup or anything like that, but it's a high pressure situation. It always is. That's the NBA. We see players, teams, franchises succumb to this sort of thing all the time. The Heat are consistent. They have a system in place. They have their coaching in their front office. That's not going anywhere. Whether Pat Riley retires tomorrow or
Mhm.
not, this team is going to continue to move along and excel, because that's just what they do. That's what they've done for the past 27 years. And they're going to continue to do that moving forward, because they've got something in place. That's what Heat culture is. As far as whether or not Jimmy Butler might request a trade, I couldn't see it. At this point, he's going to get paid a lot of money. He's not unhappy in Miami. I don't think there
No.
have been any accurate reports about that. I don't think he's expressed anything to the team or coaches or anything like that. And again, I'm not necessarily reporting that, but just from what we have heard and what we have talked to, there doesn't seem to be any kind of everybody writes
There
off Jimmy Butler and his way of approaching things as tough love.
Yeah, yeah.
Big deal. That's not
It doesn't mean that
antagonistic.
he's going to request a trade. That's why there's a leap there that was taken by rival executives and people speculating whatever. Like, look, I've been
They're waiting for
consistent.
Miami to fail.
I thought the blow up on the sideline was a big deal. And I
Yeah,
did
you
think
said that.
the Heat season was on the rocks at that point. And I believe in that. I still believe in that. But then they went off and rattled off 6 straight wins. And so whatever tension and whatever issues they had,
Yeah,
they existed, but then they figured them out.
Right.
And that is what happens over the course of a season sometimes.
That's what stability
Sometimes
does for
a
you.
team
Yeah.
doesn't figure them out, and their
Right.
team does get tanked and submarine,
Yep.
and everything is ruined. Everything is broken. In this case, it's very clear this team is not. The Heat are all the Bahamas right now, training for the first round of the playoffs. Okay, that does not speak to me. That doesn't seem to me to be a team that is broken. Okay, and
Yeah.
yeah, so I don't want to. The leap that anybody took to get from that was weird to now Jimmy Butler is going to request a trade. There's a lot of ground to cover there that it just has not realistically been covered.
Yeah. I think
Pressure makes diamonds, David.
that's what I've heard from you and Kelly Oubre. But right now we'll talk a little bit about the Coach of the Year race because there's some developments there that I think impact whether or not Erik Spoelstra shall receive the consideration that we think he deserves on this show. We'll talk about that in the next segment. But before we do that, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about a partner of a product that I just started using. I started taking AG1 recently because I wanted to feel better. It just happens. You didn't really have time. I didn't really have time to devote to the pursuit of improving my overall lifestyle, as I've mentioned before, a move, a toddler, work, and everything else. Look, it's just tough to kind of just focus on your overall health habits and things of that sort. I'm sure a lot of you can empathize with that. But I've been on AG1, for a couple of weeks now, and I feel great. It's a mild tropical taste that you add to a glass of water, basically. Every morning, you take one delicious scoop of AG1, and you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. The special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, aging, helping you sleep better, all the things. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. Tons of people take it with take some kind of multivitamin, and it's impossible and important to choose which ones have the high quality ingredients that your body will actually absorb. But AG1 makes it easier for you. It's cheaper than getting all those different supplements yourself, and it's environmentally sustainable. For every purchase, Athletic Greens, the company that makes AG1, will donate to organizations helping to get nutritious food to kids in need, including No Kid Hungry here in the U.S. So right now, if it's time for you to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, just one scoop in a cup of water every day, that's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free, that's free, 1 year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NBA network. Again, that's athleticgreens with an S.com/NBA network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. And speaking of nutrition, you probably want a snack. You probably want to indulge in a nice, rich, sugary substance, but then you kind of get guilty. You feel bad about whether or not you should eat the cookies or the cake or anything like that. You know what? Skip all that. If you want to stick to eating something healthy for whatever diet that you might be on, then let me tell you, Built Bar is a solution for you. So many different great flavors without sacrificing any of the taste. They're soft, easy to chew, 100% covered in chocolate. They're great. So many delicious flavors to choose from. You can get a mixed box with all of your favorite flavors. So many to choose from. Again, it's just a great option. And again, without sacrificing any of the nutrients that you might in a regular protein bar, whether it's milk brownie, coconut, coconut almond, or many, many more. There's so many delicious flavors. You'll find all of them at built.com. If you go to built.com and use the promo code LOCK15, you'll get 15% off your order. So use the promo code LOCK15 if you want 15% off, but only if you go to built.com. Just a reminder, they can always reach us via email at lockdownheat@gmail.com or via Twitter using the hashtag AskLHeat. Haven't heard from a lot of you lately, but make sure to please continue those comments and feedback. We want to hear from you every day. And of course, make sure to please subscribe to the show, leave a review, but also make sure to subscribe just so you can get the best coverage available on every Heat playoff game and much, much more in between games. We'll have interviews, we'll have national media perspectives, etc. throughout the playoffs. So stay here on Locked On Heat if you want to get your number one source for all things Heat related. But we'll move on because the Coach of the Year race got a little more interesting. The Coaches Association voted Monty Williams as the NBCA Coach of the Year. It's different from the media award. Six coaches got votes. Monty Williams, of course, won. But Pelicans' Willie Green got votes. Memphis' Taylor Jenkins, Clippers' Ty Lue, and Greg Popovich of the San Antonio Spurs also got votes, along with Miami Heat head coach Erik Spoelstra. I wonder whether or not what we were just talking about, the blow up with Jimmy or anything like that, whether or not it cost Spo some votes. I don't necessarily want to go back to that point, but as we're talking about this whole coach of the year race and everything else, we both agree that Spo deserves some major consideration, if not the award outright. Yeah. But I wonder whether or not this taints those national media perspectives just a little bit more when it comes to awarding him an award that he's never received, despite incredible success, being voted as one of the 15 best coaches of all time, and yet never won a Coach of the Year award.
Yeah, actually, it's interesting looking at this Coaches Association, like the report being that Monty Williams is going to win it from the Coaches Association. You actually look at the last couple coaches that the Coaches Association have awarded the Coach of the Year award. Well, no, it wasn't Tom Thibodeau. It was Monty Williams last year.
Oh, he won it last year?
Monty Williams won it last year, and then Billy Donovan and Mike Budenholzer were split the Coaches Association Coach of the Year award the year before that. The Media Coach of the Year award, the one that goes on the NBA ballot, end of the year ballot, that was voted Tom Thibodeau last year, though the Coaches Association voted Monty Williams. And then the year before that, Nick Nurse won the real Coach of the Year, while the the Coaches Association split it between Donovan and Mike Budenholzer. So the last two have not lined up. So if the trend continues in this way, then Monty Williams, who a lot of people consider the favorite, and in fact Vegas had as the runaway favorite at minus 2,000, okay, to win Coach of the Year. If the trend continues, then Monty Williams will not win Coach of the Year. Now, this is a 2-year trend, okay? It's not a large trend. In the 3 years before that, it all lined up, okay, with the Media Coach of the Year and the Coaches Association Coach of the Year. Although Erik Spoelstra did tie 1 year. He got part of the award with, I have it right here, Mike D'Antoni in 2017.
The Rockets, yeah.
And so I don't know. I would say that it's something worth keeping an eye on, but if anything, it could help Erik Spoelstra's case. Now, I don't think it will. I still think it's going to be Monty Williams, only because he is such a runaway favorite. It makes sense for also the Coaches Association to go ahead with Monty Williams. Yeah. And I can't poke holes in the Monty Williams argument. I just can't. He's awesome. The Suns have by far the best record in the NBA. Monty Williams, if he wins Coach of the Year, he absolutely deserves it. But it's not to say that Erik Spoelstra doesn't deserve heavy consideration and wouldn't deserve the award any other year. Also, Taylor Jenkins from Memphis. I've seen some people in the media voting Taylor Jenkins in that top spot for what he's been able to do with the Grizzlies this year. He certainly has the narrative case, right? You look at team coaches in the past that have won it. It's a lot of times it is the team that goes from average to really good. Those coaches tend to get some favorability in these things. So it's just, all I'm saying is it's worth keeping an eye on that Monty Williams got the Coaches Association nod, and we still don't know who gets I'm just going to call it the real Coach of the Year because that's the one that actually counts.
The media one, yeah.
The media one. Yeah.
There was something in that Varden piece too that I found interesting. Something I can't recall the exact phrasing, but he referred to the Heat as kind of like an enduring systems team or something like that, regarding like the consistent successes this team has had, and that kind of a system team, a system player. It kind of has become somewhat negative, right? There's a negative connotation to saying that. It's like, oh, you're not a good player. You just get plugged into a system and you find a way to get the most out of X player. But if you're a system team, doesn't that fall back almost inherently on the coach? Like we talked about the front office stability. I mentioned something about it in the previous segment, but isn't this like the fact that this team has been able to handle the loss of Bam Adebayo, a defensive player of the year candidate, if not the outright winner, Jimmy Butler, an all NBA type player, an all-star in Kyle Lowry, the sixth man of the year in Tyler Herro, losing all these players at various points throughout the career, the season, and that they're able to still get the most out of Max Strus, Caleb Martin, Gabe Vincent, on and on and on, incorporating Victor Oladipo, etc., and that you're still the number one seed in the Eastern Conference with 53 games. Isn't that reflective of the coach? Like, I again, not to knock Monty Williams and job he's done, but they've got Devin Booker. They lost Chris Paul. I get it. They've also had Mikal Bridges. They've had a lot of great players in and out throughout the year. I don't know at what point you just say, you know what, this is a reflective of Spo in a negative way. Like, I just don't understand why he doesn't get the consideration he deserves. And it's just
you mentioned like they're not even going to have any, but they could possibly. I think Jimmy Butler will make it, but it's very possible that they have nobody on the All NBA teams. So you're telling me the number one team in the Eastern Conference that doesn't have a single player on any of the 3 All
You can't have
NBA
it both ways.
teams,
Yeah.
that they're not led by the coach of the year? Look,
Right.
again, it's not anything against Monty Williams. If I had a vote, I probably would vote Monty Williams. Okay, that the Suns are just that good and that dominant, and it is a credit to them that they haven't had any hiccups. Okay, like
Right.
that is partly coaching, right? That it has looked so smooth when they've missed Chris Paul for a bunch of games. But Erik Spoelstra, the fact that he's never won it, that is pretty crazy. That
It's
is pretty
ridiculous.
crazy. And you make a good point where it's like, okay, we all agree this is one of the top 15 coaches of all time. We all agree that he's a future Hall of Famer. The NBA GM, like the GMs after the bubble season, ranked Erik Spoelstra. Like there's a
Right.
bunch in the annual GM survey. There's like 6 or 7 categories for coaching. Erik Spoelstra swept them. It was a sweep. It was like, and he can't get coach of the year. If he doesn't win it this year, all right, I'm okay with it. The Suns have been that good, like I said. But the fact that he's never won it, like look back on the Big 3 era. Tom Thibodeau won it with the Bulls when Derrick Rose won MVP that year, which is sort of going
Right.
against the whole logic with Erik Spoelstra right now, right? Oh, you get the
Right.
coach of the year
Right.
and the MVP, like you're that great. You won 62 games, cool, great. Greg
Right.
Popovich wins it in 2012. The Spurs didn't make the finals that year. George Karl won it in 2013 for a 57-win Nuggets team. And that was just because of the Carmelo Anthony stuff.
Right. They got
That
rid
was
of
that was the equivalent of Russell Westbrook winning MVP just because KD left. All right.
Ooh.
Greg Popovich wins it in 2014. All right, I'm okay with that. That Spurs team was awesome. They won 62 games. Budenholzer wins it with the Hawks in 15 because that was a 60-win Hawks year, and the Heat had no business winning it that year. Steve Kerr wins it during the 73-win year. Can't complain with that. And then the 2017 year where Mike D'Antoni and Erik Spoelstra split it with the Coaches Association. I thought Spo had a good case then, but you understand why Mike D'Antoni won it that year. But that was still
Right.
just a 55-win Rockets team. That wasn't an awesome Rockets team, even though they ended up taking the Warriors in the playoffs. But that's the playoffs. This is the regular season award.
Right.
So I don't get it, man. I just don't get it. I don't get it. He probably couldn't have won it in 2019. The Bucks won 60 games that year. The Heat were a 5 seed. They make the bubble run after that. That's
Right.
fine. I still think Monty Williams should have won it last year over Tom Thibodeau, who coached a 41-win Knicks team. All right. But it's if Monty Williams wins it last year, does Erik Spoelstra have a better chance to win it this year? I would bet that probably, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So
I think that's how it
kind
kind
of
of works out.
circumstantial stuff, but Spo's got to
Right.
win one of these things eventually.
Right. And just goes to show you that sometimes the narratives just don't break the right way. But I have a hard time wrapping my mind around like you attribute success to great players. The great players get recognition, and then the great quote unquote great coach winds up getting recognition. Well, in this case, Miami's had great players, certainly, and yet none of them are getting the individual recognition that they probably deserve or could potentially deserve. And yet nobody's responsible for the success in the Eastern Conference. Like I just don't get it. Like no Eastern Conference coach is really in the running for coach of the year. And yet Erik Spoelstra isn't either, despite the fact that he's got a better team. Like Ty Lue is a great coach. I think that's fair. And yet that Clippers team, I mean, obviously they've gone without Paul George for extended periods of time. They've been missing Kawhi Leonard all season long. They're right now playing in the play-in tournament, even as we're recording this. But yet, at what point does he get credit for being able to guide to the Clippers to an 8th seed play-in?
Yeah.
Whereas Miami is the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, and a lot of that has to do with the stability and the guidance of Erik Spoelstra. But we'll break it all down if and when that coach's award does come out anytime soon, and of course we'll talk about Erik Spoelstra being much more deserving of that. But we'll wrap up today's episode and also let you know that Michael Pina of Sports Illustrated will be on tomorrow's show, so make sure you stay tuned for that. As always, make sure to please subscribe. Thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On NBA. Locked On experts covering the biggest stories around the NBA every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. This is David Ramil signing off for now. Thanks so much for joining me, Wes.
Wrap it up, B.